Potter is filled with magical objects and wondrous creations, with few being more renowned than the Sorting Hat. While he plays a prominent enough role in the films, his presence is felt even more in the books, where he not only sorts students, but sings annual poetic songs dedicated to explaining each of the houses. However, even for those who have read the book several times, there is the lesser-known phenomenon of the Hatstall. Before we continue, I'm Riley and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel I rant about fantasy books, offering lore, exploring characters, and sharing my opinion as a reader. Occasionally I also offer writing advice. If any of this sounds like your cup of butter beer, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Fridays. The Sorting Hat is supposed to make the right decision, but there's been some debate over whether or not that is always the case. There have been several students who may have done better in other houses. After all, as they grew up, those other traits, such as ambition or bravery, became more pronounced. The Sorting Hat, for his part, is adamant about his decisions, even if, as was the case with Harry, he defers to the students' wishes. Hatstalls are exactly what they sound like. If the sorting of a single person takes more than 5 minutes, this is considered an unusual event, one which can be as rare as every 50 years. Though the Hat insists all his choices are correct, this indecision on his part hasn't helped to assuage the doubt others have felt around his decisions. Minerva McGonagall was a notable Hatstall, with the Sorting Hat weighing the houses of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw against each other. After much deliberation, McGonagall was finally placed in the former, though with her intellect and wit, she might just as soon have excelled in Ravenclaw. Likewise, Phileas Flitwick was a Hatstall for the same houses, though he was sorted into Ravenclaw, his intelligence and cleverness superseding the pronounced bravery the Hat must have seen in him. Dumbledore has expressed his own doubts on the matter of sorting, having been heard to say he sometimes feels they sort too soon. Lesser traits can become more prominent with time, while others can become less important. Gilderoy, while not known as being a Hatstall, was a Ravenclaw student. While there's no doubt he was clever, he used his cleverness as a means to an end to fuel his ambitions. He also showed a lack of remorse in many cases, valuing his fame and prestige over the care of others, and he was one of the few Ravenclaws not to relish learning for its own sake. Instead, even learning was just a means to an end. Given that Slytherin's foremost aspiration is ambition, with many students choosing to seek power or fame at the expense of others, he's a classic example of someone who might have done just as well, if not better, in another house. In a previous video, I mentioned that Hermione was a Hatstall, though this might not be true officially. A bar of 5 minutes is required to be a Hatstall, though Hermione and Neville are noted by the author to have come very close. Like Minerva, Hermione could have been destined for Ravenclaw as well as Gryffindor. However, also like Minerva, she was ultimately placed in Gryffindor, demonstrating that for all her passion for learning and brightness, her bravery was all the more pronounced. As the brightest witch of the age and a top-achieving student, Hermione would have been a shoo-in for Ravenclaw, but her own opinions might have been taken into account too. After all, she was heard to say on the train that Gryffindor sounded like the best. Already, she was identifying with the house, despite her obsession with learning, and in this case, the Hat was correct. Likewise, Neville came short of being a Hatstall because his sorting took a solid 4 minutes. With most students being sorted in seconds, this was still remarkable, and Neville argued with the Hat just as Harry had. Not realizing how brave he was, being of a seemingly meek disposition, Neville begged the Hat to place him in Hufflepuff. Despite his pleas, the Hat saw something in Neville he couldn't. It insisted on placing him in Gryffindor, and this was one of the cases where the Hat's intuition appeared correct. After all, Neville would go on to lead the DA, rebel against Death Eaters, and destroy a Horcrux. The fact he was able to accomplish all of this, even against his pronounced fears, showed he was braver than anyone, being seen to stand up for his friends and up to them in the first book. He also exhibited hints early on of his quality. Of all the Hatstalls, though, there are none more infamous than Peter Pettigrew. Though eventually placed in Gryffindor, the Hat vacillated between placing the boy in Gryffindor or Slytherin. Outwardly, Peter didn't come across as brave or ambitious. He was more of a tag-along than anything, giving off Neville Longbottom vibes. He was shy and followed after others, but it's important to note that he tagged after those who were powerful or brilliant. The Marauders, designing a clever map and turning themselves into animagi without help, an especially advanced piece of magic, helped to elevate Peter to new heights. He became an animagi too, indicating that, at least with the aid of others, he had some talent. Much of Peter's accomplishments wouldn't have been achieved without others, but in knowing this, he befriended those who could help him best. It's also worth noting that there are plenty of Slytherins who show this follower-type behavior. Not every Slytherin distinguishes themselves. Instead, they're simply ambitious. They might put in the work themselves, or they might, as seen with those like Dolores Umbridge, piggyback off the efforts of others. In following James and Sirius, Peter's behavior was not dissimilar to that of Crabbe and Goyle, or any of the Death Eaters who followed Voldemort in masses without question. Crabbe and Goyle, knowing they'd struggle to accomplish anything on their own, still attached themselves to a student who could. Malfoy comes from an extremely powerful and wealthy family, his father being especially influential in the Ministry. Therefore, Crabbe and Goyle were ambitious, even as followers, because in befriending a Malfoy, they'd be making friends in high places and opening doors for themselves to more agreeable positions. It's not hard to imagine Lucius pulling strings on behalf of Crabbe and Goyle in return for their loyalty to his son. Peter Pettigrew, then, is the kind of person who chases ambition by proxy of those around him. There are less clear-cut examples of his bravery, though choosing to turn into a rat so you can hang out with your werewolf best friend could be seen as a brave act. Peter was one of those instances where people disagreed with the Sorting Hat, but the Hat was adamant he'd made the right choice, and his decision might make more sense to those who have read the books. In a moment completely glossed over in the films, Harry faces Pettigrew while trying to escape the Malfoy cellar. As Peter approaches, Harry reminds Peter that he owes him one for sparing his life, and Peter hesitates. Peter actually considers letting Harry go, thereby defying Voldemort, and for this he is killed. Voldemort isn't there, but sensing defiance, the silver hand Voldemort had created for him chokes out its own owner. Try as he might, Harry can't pry the metal fingers away, and Peter dies in a moment of redemption. Taking all this into account, it's possible the Hat, while not being capable of seeing the future, could sense this small but critical bit of bravery in Pettigrew. It's possible the Hat was trying to push him towards seeing the better part of himself, too, by placing him in Gryffindor. An easily influenced person, Peter needed positive role models. However much of a villain he was, it's worth noting that what little bravery he did have came out when it was most needed. Had he not considered sparing Harry himself, Harry might not have been given the chance to defeat Voldemort. He was still a traitor, but he died in an act of bravery, and the Hat saw that potential in him. Plus, if he hadn't been sorted into Gryffindor and exposed to his better nature, he, having not befriended James, wouldn't have had a reason to exercise this bravery in the first place, as it was what little loyalty he had which prompted it. All in all, the merit of the Hat's decisions continues to be up for debate. While the Hat stands by all of his choices, the brilliant Dumbledore has his doubts, and the phenomenon of the Hatstall only underscores this uncertainty. After all, McGonagall likely would have done just as well in Ravenclaw, as well as Hermione, but for the most part, the Hat seems to have made the right choices. How do you feel about the Sorting Hat? Do you feel it can be wrong sometimes? Or do you feel like its process is just misunderstood? Do you have doubts about which Hogwarts house you belong to? Sound off in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy reading!